Hey AfterBuzz TV fans, today I am here in studio with Chris Santos. You can find him in the recent South by Southwest hit. He is one of the stars of the movie Perfect. We will be talking about that movie and more coming right up.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AfterBuzz TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
We each get one ear.
Yeah.
Together, we make a full
Make a
head.
team.
Yes. Hey AfterBuzz TV fans, welcome to Spotlight On. Today I am in studio with Chris Santos. We're just laughing because we seem to have only one ear each working, so together we make a full person. So Chris, where can everyone find you on Twitter and Insta if they want to stay in touch?
My Twitter is I am Chris Santos, but just the letter I and the letter M, Chris Santos. And my Insta, which is the cooler way of saying it now,
that's what I know now.
is they call me Santos.
Okay. Well, both of those sound pretty hip. I just learned that it's Insta, not Instagram, so I'm really feeling very hip now. I'm Zoe Hewitt. You can find me on Twitter and Insta at Real Zoe Hewitt. Now, as we get started, your movie just premiered just a couple weeks ago now at South by, which apparently I also just learned it's not South by Southwest, it's South by.
Yeah, I learned that while I was there. I was like, oh, well, actually, when I came back, funny enough, I was like, oh, I was just at South by Southwest, and this girl stopped me. She goes, actually, it's South by. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah. So I was at South by.
You're at South by with your film. So how cool was it? When did you hear that the movie was going there?
Well, we heard literally probably a couple weeks before, because once Steven Soderbergh got involved as the executive producer, he kind of was really on top of where he wanted to place it, you know, in particular. And I think they really wanted it to be at South by because that's a tech convention as much as a music convention as movies. So it's a really cool mix of things. And the movie has a sci-fi component, technology component to it. So I think that's really what they were gunning for. But the funny part of the story was, you know, Eddie Alcazar, the director of the film, really wasn't done with the film till right up before it actually showed. And everyone was like, you know, I hope he's going to be done with it. And you know, I'd call him and he's like, this is going to be really close. So they set the date. I found out a couple weeks before where I was super pumped. I'd always wanted to go to South by Southwest, and it was such a great time. And there's nothing better than going to a festival with a film that you have out there and could tell people while you're there. You could promote it and go see it and do the press for the film and sit in a theater and have all these people watch your film. And it was such a great experience. And
was it a little bit of a nail biter because you didn't know if the film would be done on time?
It was definitely a nail biter. It was definitely a nail biter to know if the film would be done on time. It was a nail biter because Eddie is his background is special effects, and so I knew he was going to be pushing the envelope visually with this movie. And if you watch the trailer, you'll understand what I mean. Yeah. So it was a nail biter for a lot of reasons. Was it going to get done? Was it going to be received well? You know, how far was Eddie going to push it? And everything landed great.
And it's funny because you took my next part, because I agree, the trailer is really cool and you can tell there are lots of neat effects. And your role in particular, so you're an artificial intelligence agent, is that right? There's some AI?
I am, well, it's up for you to sort of try to figure out, but I mean, my character's name is STRIPS, which is an acronym. It stands for Stanford Institute of Technology Research Problem Solver. Which is a type of AI, artificial intelligence. And so there's a lot of people that are at this clinic, you know, where the lead, Garrett Waring, is going to sort of get help for his dark past. And there's a lot of people he meets along the way, and you don't really know if they are human, if they are people, if they're autonomous robots, you know, and my character is technically a type of AI, but you know, what did he start as is you know, left up to you to figure out.
And watching the trailer, some of it you can go, wait, okay, that's an effect. Wait, how much of that was happening? So what were you doing on set? Did you have a chance to do any cool stunts?
Well, okay, now all of my dialogue in the film, I had the most challenging dialogue in the film because when Eddie and I were friends, so we knew each other before this film even came to be. And so when it was coming together, he's like, obviously I want you to be in it. Like, what type of character would you like to do? And I said, just give me something super challenging, super dynamic, super fun. And so he told this to the writer. And so the writer took that personally. And the way he sort of the technique he used to write my dialogue was he took one of his favorite novels, he cut up the pages, threw it in the air, and as it landed on the floor, he sort of just wrote it down in no particular measure. So I'd say the most challenging part of this film was not necessarily anything physical that I had to do. Well, you have to think about idiosyncratic behaviors as being an AI and all that, but sort of finding a through line to these words that do not connect and do not make sense and are slightly biblical and Shakespearean, if you would, and really say them with believability was definitely a massive challenge.
Right. And that is a challenge, because if you as an actor aren't sure exactly what you're saying, then that might not play exactly well.
Yeah, well, they delivered me my lines, and then Eddie was like, okay, hey, so they got me my lines at like 10 a.m. And we're like, hey, so you could just go into casting at like 3 and do that on film. That'd be great. And I took one read of it and I called. I said, are you nuts? I don't even know what this means. This means not. This is gibberish on the page. And he's like, well, figure it out. And so I kept pushing off the appointment to go to casting because I didn't know. Right. I said, I can't leave. I can't just. He said, just go read it on camera. And I said, I can't do that. Like I have to know what the hell I have to have a point of view on it at least. And so finally, it got to a day where he was like, Chris, go to casting right now. Get in your car right now and go to casting right now. And I was like getting dressed and something just clicked and I actually found the through line and I walked in and casting was like, well, thank you for showing up. And, I said, have you guys read this stuff? And they, turned on the camera and I was ready at that point, did it. And we did one take only, both sort of monologues that I had. And they were like, okay, yeah. Okay. That was good. That was good. It's very nice to meet you. And, I felt good after that.
And it's nice to get that feedback in the room, but as an actor, you can get great feedback and then this happens or that happens, and it still doesn't mean that you get the part. So when you walked out, did you feel like it was great, like, we'll see, or hey, Eddie's in my corner, I have a better shot?
Well, that's a really great question, actually. For most times I've gotten something, they didn't say anything, and I felt terrible about it. And anytime I was in the room, like, oh my God, that was just so that was breathtaking. Never hear from them again. When I'm having a bad day, I don't like what I did, and they're like, okay, thanks, get out. And I'm like, okay, they're never calling me, and they're like, oh, you got the part. And so there's no rhyme or reason when it comes to this. It's a crapshoot always, and I felt good about what I did, and that's the measure of my success.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so because you had this gibberish, essentially, to pull together, how did everyone else react to you on set? Because then their acting is also really put to the test because they have to react to gibberish. Well,
yeah. Most of the time when I'm talking, I'm giving a sort of, I'll say, sermon-esque deliverance. So it was funny because I was really nervous. On the day that I was on set, I wasn't talking to the actors. I was literally like walking in a circle, saying the words and saying the words and saying the words for hours. And everyone I knew, they had the script, so they knew what my part was. I think a lot of the actors are probably like very interested to see what and how I was going to do this thing. And after I got done shooting the first one, like a couple actors came up to me like, okay, wow, I don't know how you just pulled that off, but you killed that. Like, really, could you tell me how you did that, please? And so it was fun. It was a great challenge.
And that's a really nice compliment too. When you have other people telling you, like, I was waiting to see what was going to happen.
Yeah. And they were like, I was worried for you, like, but no, but you did okay. You made it. And everyone in the film is super talented, and that's what blew me away. You work on a project, and you're like, oh, I like this person, that person, but I was blown away every performance I saw every actor do, and I was just like, wow. And it really made me feel like, you need to bring your A game because they're bringing theirs.
Right. You don't want to be the one who screws up.
100%.
And
the one who asked for the challenging part and then can't deliver.
And so do you remember any of your lines? Because now I just feel like I want an example of gibberish. God. I swear you could just be like, make sounds. So we're like, okay.
No, I know the lines. They'll never leave me. They haunt me every night. What do you mean? No, some of the lines are sort of like the bow of God's wrath is bent and the arrow made ready on the string, and it is justice that bends the arrow at your heart and it strains the bow, and all this. I mean, that's just a little idea of the type of stuff. That one was more biblical. The other one is total jibber jabber. Which I don't even think I could string that together. It was really dynamic and hard.
But I'm actually really impressed because I know I put you on the spot, so I also feel like maybe you deserve a little apology.
No, it's fine. It's fine. But I've seen a lot of TV like hosts. They'll do this game with actors where they say, "I'm going to say a line. You tell me what film that was from," and the actors don't. They say the line that they did, and they don't remember the project. And I'm like, how could you not remember? And some people, they do it and throw it away. It's mine. They stay with me.
This will stay with you forever.
Oh yeah, and this will definitely stay with me
forever. Bows and arrows.
yeah. And the writer's actually writing something else, and he's like, okay, and I really want to write this part towards you. I was like, okay, could we stick to normal English here, please?
Right. I feel like your next part, you need to be up for like Robin Hood.
Yeah,
like with bows and arrows.
Yeah. That would be great.
You'll be all set. Yeah. Like, I know these bows and arrows.
I know how to do this arrow stuff really well.
I'm a champ at that. Now, the movie also is really visually interesting. So when you watched it, what stood out to you the most?
Wow. That's another great question. I guess what's so cool is he took us to another planet, another universe. And, we shot at a location, you look out the window and you see the city. And yet when you see the film, we are not on planet Earth and we are not in this city. And he sort of brought a life to the house, whereas there wasn't, and he made you feel like there was an actual soul to the clinic, and we're in another place. And it was crazy because I'm looking out the window watching the film, and I'm like, I know I was there and I know what out that window looks like, but it's flawless. It's flawlessly done. I mean, he transports you to another place, and you don't for one second disbelieve that you're in another place. So for me, that was pretty magical.
Yeah, and that's definitely a testament to the directing and the special effects that you can forget where you even were.
Yeah, I was there, and I was myself transported to another place. Was also watching the people that I knew and the people in the audience, like watching their faces. And it's an extreme film, and yet they stayed glued to the screen, men and women, which was just super cool to really watch.
And was that your first time, since it was down to then, was that your first time seeing the film as well?
That was my entirety? Oh yeah, Eddie kept it really tight to his chest. Well, predominantly because it wasn't so close to not being ready, because he kept adding more special effects and more touches. And I think it was Michelangelo said, a piece of art is never finished; it's only abandoned. And so he was very much in that vein of things. And so I never really saw it in its most final form, and it was worth the wait.
And I feel like, you'd want to spend maybe 50% of your time looking at the screen to see what happened, but looking around, how are people taking it in?
Yeah, because that's ultimately all that matters. It doesn't matter what I think of the film or what I think of my performance. It matters what the viewers think. It's the people that buy the tickets that decide your fate and your outcome. It's not. I can only do what I can do best, and that's the most I could hope. But if people respond and they buy the tickets and they see it, that's really all that mattars.
Right. I feel like that's a very Zen outlook. Like, I did my part, and I can't, which is true, though. You can't do any more then.
You can't obsess. You have to just do it and take your shot, and it might hit and it might miss, and that's quite all right. At least you took a shot. And if you obsess over what you did or how it's going to come out and all that, you're just wasting so much energy over stuff you can't control. The audience is either going to respond and they're going to like it or they're not.
Right. And that part, exactly, like, you wash your hands of that.
You let go and you let God. And you hope you made a good choice.
Absolutely. And you guys made a good choice bringing Steven Soderbergh on, because we touched on that a bit at the beginning, but there's really an interesting story behind it. He wasn't just, he didn't just happen to be there producing your movie. No. It was totally pretty wild story. Eddie, after completing a very rough cut of the film, in this film, I think, depending on the cutting, could have been 20 different films. There was just so much he shot and so many different ways it could have played out. He called me and said, hey, would you feel comfortable sending this to Steven? He's really good at editing. He's a master editor, and maybe getting some creative notes from him on how this film should play out. And I'd really, at that point, I'd known Steven for about 9 years or so and kept in contact, but I've never asked him to do something like this. But I really felt like he would respond to this film
So ultimately I did. I reached out to him and I said, hey, I've never asked you to do this, but I really think you'll enjoy this film. And this guy's really great, and all he would like is just some sort of notes back from you. I know you're extremely busy. He's a workaholic. And I honestly didn't even expect him to say yes. I really thought he'd just be like, Chris, I would love to. I'm just so busy. But I know he makes time to read every day and watch films every day. So I thought, why not just slip this into one of your days? And he wrote back and he's like, absolutely, get me the film.
Which is a very nice testament to your relationship. Like you said, 9 years since you had actually worked with him. So that's a good chunk of time.
Yep.
And that's a big ask.
Yeah. And
so were you nervous?
Oh, I was terrified. I had written the email and I didn't send it for a day or two because you don't know. You don't want to bother people. Everyone's busy. Everyone has their own projects going on. And I just didn't want to change our friendship from a friendship to a feeling of me trying to use him or exploit him or anything. But I just knew this was right for him. I just really felt like that. Or I felt that way. I didn't know it.
Yeah.
And I was very nervous. And but ultimately I said, the worst he's going to say is no.
Right.
And so what?
Right.
I think I've known him long enough to know we could survive a no. But he didn't. He said yes.
Right.
And about 2 days later, again, I'm big on just do your work or send your stuff and don't freak out or stress about it. I sent it, and 2 days later, he wrote back and said, you know what, this guy's really talented. And called Eddie, and Eddie said, yeah, he already reached out to me, and he's going to be in LA for Lucky Logan premiere, and we're going to meet. And I really just thought it was going to be a meeting for him to say, hey, man, I would take the film this way. And they came out of that meeting with him editing it, and then some point after that, him coming on, signing on as executive producer, and now he's really shepherding this thing along on its way.
Which is pretty amazing. I mean, like you said, that's something you can't even hope for, that you're writing tasks, like, can I get a couple notes? And now you've got him on as a producer as well.
Yeah. Again, it's not something, Eddie and I weren't sitting in a back room. We're like, so, we'll do this. No, it really was just that. I mean, his notes alone would have been great for the film. It's a great film. Eddie's a great director. His notes alone would have been great. So to get all that extra stuff, it doesn't get better. I mean, that's just like Hollywood magic. That's the Hollywood magic you want.
And you were able to connect two people as well, which then also is nice for everyone involved.
But the thing, everyone on the film benefited from this meeting that I was lucky enough to set these two really great artists up. I mean, I did nothing but say, hey, you meet you and go, and they did, and they connected, and who knows where that manifests itself moving forward, and what it might come out to be next, which is kind of exciting too,
Yeah, that is. And it's an interesting bit of symmetry that you are introducing someone to Steven, because you had actually been introduced to him yourself when you first started working with him, which is also a really neat story.
Yeah. So I was a trainer living in Manhattan for 10 years, and one of my first clients, David Levine, I got him, and we stayed together, trained together for 10 years, and he was a novelist. He went on to become a pretty successful screenwriter and do a bunch of films. And
Such as?
He sold around, him and his partner, Brian Koppelman, they wrote and sold Rounders, which is like a cult classic poker film. They did Runaway Jury, Runner, and then they did Ocean's 13 with Steven Soderbergh. And while they were doing that film, they came up with the idea for the film, which would come to be The Girlfriend Experience. And David went off to write that with Brian. And after they got done writing it, David called me and said, hey, man, we just wrote this film, and it's about this high-class escort. And I gave her a boyfriend, and he became a trainer. And I really feel like I channeled a lot of you into the character. And so I just moved out to Los Angeles probably about 6 months before that. And he's like, look, I want to get you a sit-down with Steven, and maybe you could come on as a consultant, give him some ideas about personal training and the life that's like, and we'll get you a check. And I was like, great, I've just moved to Los Angeles, that would be wonderful. And I went and had dinner with Steven, and we talked for a couple hours about training and my life in New York and how that all was. And at the end of dinner, he just closed his book and said, listen, Chris, I want you to be this guy. I want you to play this guy in the film. And again, I was in this one, I was utter disbelief. I was like, come on, you're lying. Stop. You're going to get Matt Damon or Brad Pitt. And he's like, no, I want you to do it. And so, I ended up being the lead of The Girlfriend Experience with Sasha Grey and Steven, with David and Brian, who wrote it. And now 9 years after that, I'm introducing Eddie to Steven. And funny enough, I wrote to David and I said, hey, I really got to say thank you to you because none of these things would have happened without that first thing that you did. So, a lot of people will probably never ever say thank you. I'll say thank you for them and myself.
Right. Because it's true. You never know exactly what's going to happen. And you're talking 10 years that you had been working with him as a trainer. I mean, it's like you guys were just chit-chatting, you know, over lunges, right?
Yeah. I mean, exactly right. We would just talk in between sets and we'd always kick ideas around. I mean, he has his show Billions now, which is on Showtime. And I remember him talking to me about ideas of this show, 14 years ago. He was like, I really want to do a show like this. And he was interviewing hedge fund owners all the way back then. So it's crazy to me that now it's this massive show on TV, but it's all about the long game. That's what I was saying to you outside. It is all about the long game. Trust the process, network, but don't crush the grapes. Let them grow, let them flourish, and the time will come.
And I think that's also such an interesting point to remember too, in terms of David, that he was working on this show 14 years ago, and look at all that he's done. So it's not even like, once you're successful, once you've written Ocean's 13, then you can do anything.
Oh, absolutely.
It still takes time.
Oh yeah. And I'm sure I can't speak for David, but he's gone a lot of gaps in between doing great things, and then everyone has ups and downs. Everyone does. I did The Girlfriend Experience 9 years ago. To be in another film with Steven is 9 years. If you're going to be in this business, you're going to have to get used to sort of the ups and the downs and the ups and the downs, no matter what level you're at. Even if you're at that like super high A-list level, you're going to have bad movies come out. It's going to happen. And so you just got to, if you look at it all as, one long move as opposed to multiple short moves, it's a lot easier to take in.
Yeah, absolutely, because you have to have that Zen outlook to just roll with it. Do you feel like the personal training helps with that? Because I feel like when you're exercising that much, you really have to focus. And so does that help you sort of like focus differently?
That's another good question. I mean, I think strong body, strong mind. I find it interesting, like in the military, the first thing they don't sit you down with papers and pens. They just work your body and strengthen your body first, and that strengthens your mind. I'm a big believer in manifesting what you do. And I think when you can deal with physical pain, that has a mental strain, and you have to say, okay, no, I want to quit. And you have to talk yourself through that physical pain. Suddenly the pains of life, they fall into a sort of a similar bucket where if I could conquer this pain, or I could conquer the pain of rejection and loss and all that, you get through it. Right. And if you are always looking forwards as opposed to getting knocked down and just sitting in it, but saying, okay, this hurt really bad, but I'm going to get up and I'm going to take another couple steps. I always say, like, if life manifested itself physically, like my arm's blown off, like I'm dragging my back leg, but as long as you keep moving forwards, you'll get there.
Right. I like that. I feel like, words of wisdom. Like, keep going. It makes me want like the Rocky theme or something, like a fist pump right now. I feel like I'm ready to go do like 300 jumping jacks.
Well, I mean, listen, this is the story I tell myself, and it's working out a little bit, but I've always felt that way. And I've always felt like it doesn't matter what you're doing or where you start. It matters where you finish. And if you wake up and you go forwards and you do one thing a day, and you're good to people, and you help people out and you pay people back when they help you out, people are going to want to come help you and be around you.
Which you're finding as you keep seeing things come full circle, 10 years and 10 years.
Yeah, and now it's I'd like to shorten the time in between these stories. They're great stories, but I'd like to shorten them down.
Maybe to 5 years.
I'll take 5. I'm okay with 5. And then, eventually after 5, we'll get down to 3 and maybe, get it down to once a year.
Right.
And but as your circle grows, as your circle of influence grows, and the people that you help grows, hopefully those opportunities grow. I mean, Steven's great. I've now worked with Steven twice. Another 7 or 8 times, and I'll be over him. And
hopefully he's not listening to this. You will never be over him.
No, and now I have Eddie, and I'm determined to work with David again. I really want to work with David again because I after all these guys, you know, I still feel it all sort of comes from David. So if I could somehow loop that circle back around and
close the chain.
Close the chain, it'll be great. You know, whether I'm bringing him a project or he puts me on Billions or whatever, you know.
It makes me think of like batteries, like you're closing the circuit.
Yeah, but I feel determined to do it. And at that point, you know, who knows what's possible.
And so many projects, and you've got another really interesting one that you finished now called Someday, right?
Yeah, so Someday came to be, my sister's a hairstylist, and she is styling the driver of the film, Catherine Castro, who's my co-star, and it's her film, it's her story that she got developed and written, and she couldn't find a male actor for it. And my sister was doing her hair, and while she was doing her hair, she was telling her about it. I guess another service person here, right? So my sister, she's like, you know what? You need to send the script to my brother. And I can't speak for him, but if he likes it, he'll do it, and he's right. And so she ultimately sent me the script, and you know, I got to the end of the first page, and I texted my sister, said, tell this girl I'm this guy and I'm doing this part. I'm not like asking, I'm telling. And ultimately we met and we did a read through. And she was, again, you know, at the end, she was like, yeah, okay, you're the guy. And I'm playing a classical composer and conductor, which is really cool. It's another great character. I mean, I'm all about challenges. I'm all about characters. I'm all about trying to, you know, get in the skin of these people and find out, you know, how they operate. And being an AI is something out there, and was, you know, my take on it. And playing a classical composer and conductor is another massive challenge. I mean, even the way they move, or, you know, the way they hear music, it's different to them. It's a little bit different. They write it, so they know the notes. They read it. It's different. It moves them differently. I think music moves everyone, but if you ever watch a conductor conducting an orchestra, it's pretty intense.
Right. And do you actually play a musical instrument?
I played the trumpet and the saxophone when I was younger.
Okay, like in marching band younger? Or?
No, like sit in the chair and play younger, and no marching band for me.
I played saxophone and marching band. So
you did? Oh. Okay, great. Yeah. No, I couldn't handle the marching. I was just like, I could just play this trumpet.
Well, I couldn't handle the playing, so you know. So trumpet and saxophone.
Trumpet and saxophone. So I actually learned to read music when I was younger. I'd forgotten how to read it, and I didn't attempt to relearn how to read it for this film. I just spent a lot of hours sort of listening to classical music. I studied a lot of, there's one main conducting style, which is just based on sort of how many notes are getting played, but there's multiple based on how many notes you're dealing with and all that, and what instruments you're dealing with, and how you're communicating with them, or the pace of the music, or the tempo of the music, and sort of how they move, you know, with such specificity. And I really spent a lot of time developing how I hear music and how I move when I'm speaking about music. You know, even, you know, just subtle things that I tried to really bring to this guy, and I really hope plays when it goes. But now that's talking about the character, but the film itself is this really cool film. So I'm a classical composer and conductor, and I'm getting on a flight from Sydney, Australia, back to Los Angeles, which is a 14-hour flight, and everyone on the plane knows who I am, except for the person sitting next to me, which is Catherine, and we now spend this 14-hour flight together, and it's really a film on sort of the experience, and I think we've all had it, where you meet somebody, whether it be at a bar or a restaurant, or it could be the grocery store, and you just feel like you know them. And you end up sharing an experience with them and stories with them that you really wouldn't tell anyone. And at the end, you know, you don't exchange info. You just go. And that experience lives, and that's all it is. And you think about that person, but you always think back, like, why do I feel like I know you? And I guess the idea kind of is maybe you do. You know, maybe you have in another life or in another dimension or something like that. And so this all plays out in the film. But another piece of the film is we have a really complicated dancing component to the film, which I won't tell you how that manifests itself, but we had to learn to do the Argentinian tango together, which is like the toughest dance in the world to learn. So that was another challenge on top of everything else. But I love this stuff. I mean, I live for it. And so that was great. And Catherine is amazing, really talented actress, and was super easy to work with.
And did you talk afterwards with her saying like, yeah, like my hairstylist said to reach out to her brother, and I was like, I don't know. I mean, like these types of things must come up all the time.
All the time, all the time. I guess like again, I just I'm constant. And by the way, I'm constantly telling people like, do you know anyone? Like, and if you do, say my name. But yeah, she was like, it was weird. She was doing my hair, and there was like, I'm talking to her about these actors that I was trying to get, and she was like, oh, you need to get my brother, and I was like.
Right.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's get your brother. What are the chances? Because she'd been looking at a bunch of actors, and then for it just to work, because her and I had such a good chemistry as well, and which is a really important thing if you're going to do a film, especially if there's I'll say like a love component to it, or this extreme connection that you're going to have with somebody that you do feel like you just know them. That was a big part of it, and we had that. So. Lucky, I guess.
Right. I mean, you can't make chemistry. You can make a lot of things.
You can
and
make
you can
a
be
lot
really
of things.
good at a lot of things,
Yes.
but you can't make that chemistry.
Yeah, there are a couple of things you cannot fake. You cannot fake chemistry.
Right.
You cannot fake embarrassment. You can't be like, I'm going to make my face turn red. And so chemistry is definitely one of them, and I agree with you. That's really smart. And so we had it, which is great.
And so after you met, then you decided, like, okay, we're going to move forward with this film. So does most of it actually take place on the airplane? Like, are you sitting other than doing the tango? Because that's a lot of sitting.
Yeah, the entire film takes place sitting.
Other than the tango.
Other than the tango. So there's me entering the plane, sort of like the beginning, when you have to say, like, I'm the window is actually one of my lines. If you want to play that game. So
yes. Give me a line.
I can tell you her lines too. No, so I'm the window is the opening line between us, and so it's me then sitting down, and then sort of like the flight taking off, and then it clips through. I mean, a 14-hour flight's a long flight, so it clips through at a pace. You're gonna have us settling in, then you'll have us eating dinner, and then us having a drink, and then us sleeping, and then us getting close to Los Angeles. And so there's a lot of it snips by pretty quickly, but a 14-hour flight is a lot to film.
Yeah. Yeah, no.
We didn't film a 14-hour flight, by the way. No, we didn't.
It's in real time.
Yeah, it's actually in real time. There's a clock ticking in the background.
Like 24 episodes an hour.
Dude. Yeah.
And actually, I wasn't going to ask for a line. I was going to ask you to compose something for us.
Oh, yeah. Give me your pen now.
But so have you had that experience on a plane where you tell someone, people start chit-chatting, what do you do? I'm an actor. And they're like, oh, yeah, like, really?
Yeah, I think when you tell anyone and you're an actor, and I get mad when actors actually get nervous and shy when they say they're an actor and insecure, and they're like, oh, I'm an actor. And I'm like, why do you say it like that? And they're like, well, everyone. I said, so what? So what? You're not everyone. And so people say, I'm an actor.
Right.
And they're like, oh, yeah, really? And, yeah.
What have you done?
Really?
Right.
And they're like, have you been in anything? I'd say, yeah. And even if I hadn't, I would say no, but I will be.
Right.
And I don't think you should be doing a job you're insecure telling people you did. If I was like, well, what are you doing? Like, I'm a host. I host a show. Right. It's like, well, you shouldn't be doing that job. Right. You should be happy. You should be confident and empowered about it. And so, yeah, you get that question a lot, especially when you say you're an actor. Right. The first question is, have you been in anything I've seen? And the question is, I don't know. I don't know what type of films or TV you watch. Why don't you tell me what you watch, and I'll tell you if maybe you've seen me. And as it grows, I'll have hopefully more answers, to those questions. But it's cool when you say something, because they really don't expect you to say something. And it's funny, even sometimes I'll say like, oh yeah, like I was in this film, The Girlfriend Experience, and they're like, wait, I saw that film. Wait, oh, you're the trainer. And then you're their best friend, like, oh my God, I really like that film. I connected that film. I loved it. And they have so much to say about it. And that's a good feeling when it comes from, the expectation of it not to go well, like, what have you been in? Right. But then you say something they've seen, and you've kind of in a way touched them. Yeah. And then, you end up having a great conversation with them about it. And that's fun.
And then they ask you if you remember any of your lines.
Yes, then they always challenge me with questions from my lines from the films.
And, it's kind of cool, too, because, then they go away and say, hey, I was sitting next to this guy.
Yeah.
It turns out.
Yeah. It's and it leaves them with a great story too.
Yeah.
And like, look, I have great stories. I've sat next to so many, or been in environments with people where I'm just like, oh my God, wow, this is so, this is so cool. I'm gonna have some embarrassing ones as well, but they're great stories. So I don't think I'm somebody that is in many great stories. Hopefully I'm in more great stories. I don't know, but
You are. Don't sell yourself short.
Yeah.
All this rah rah, I feel like this whole time, and now you're like, I might not be in it.
Right now I'm like, I don't know. I'm in a lot of great stories. God damn it.
This is a great story right here.
Right here, right now.
This
We're
is
making
it.
a great story.
Yes.
Someone kicks in the door with a gun. We'll have a phenomenal story here.
I'm ducking down, and I trust you with the martial arts background to save us.
God help us.
So, okay, you said you have a lot of stories. So now, of course, I'll let you choose if you want to share one of the embarrassing ones or not. But what is your great story sitting next to someone where you kind of felt like, oh my gosh, I'm meeting.
Okay, this is
Whoever.
the most, I can't even believe I'm going to
come
share
on.
this
Yes,
with you.
share
This
it.
is so wrong for me to share. But it's embarrassing and funny, and some people will laugh a lot. So, growing up, one of my favorite, I can't.
You're in a safe place. It's just me.
Well, this involves Steven Soderbergh too. But so growing up in my house, we had a couple, like it was me, my dad, and my older brother. We had a couple shows that we watched that like were our shows. And no one was allowed to talk during these shows. No girls in the room. And one of them was this show, Quantum Leap. And Scott Bakula was the lead of this show. Now, I don't know if everyone's who knows Scott Bakula is, but
I know.
do you know who Scott Bakula is? Okay, he's great.
Yes.
Okay, so I grew up watching Quantum Leap with my dad and my brother, so it's like a memory, you know. And when Steven showed the Girlfriend Experience here in Los Angeles, Scott Bakula. Well, I didn't know this, but at the end, you're watching this film you're in, and you're like, "Oh my God, is it good? I hope people liked it." And then it like ends, and it's a room full of people. You don't know who's there, and the lights came up, and I kind of like sat up, and my mom was to my right, and my brother was with me to my left, and like, I just do this for effect, but like in a slow motion, this guy stood up and turned sideways, and I'm like, and I was like, "Oh my God, ow, that's Scott Bakula," and he's like, "Oh my God, it's Scott Bakula." And my mom starts hysterically laughing because, there were other like pretty big actors in the audience, but I'm like, "It's Scott Bakula." And my mom is cracking up and she's like, "I can't believe you guys are having this reaction right now. You're in a film on this thing and you're worried about Scott Bakula." And I'm like, go meet him. Like, go meet him. And so my brother goes, he's like, "Okay, I got it. And he goes, and I walked up, nonchalant. I'm like, "Oh, hey guys, how you doing?" "Oh, hey." He's like, "Hi, how you doing?" "I'm Scott." I was like, "You're Scott Bakula." Like I intended to be really cool about it. I was like, "Oh my God, you're Scott Bakula." Yeah. He's like, "Yeah, you can just call me Scott." I'm like, No, you are Scott Bakula. He's like, "Hey man, I want to let you know, great, really great, well done." I'm like, "No, I am not taking compliment from Scott Bakula." And then Steven Soderbergh walks up and he's like, "Chris, what do you think?" I go, "What do I think? We got Scott Bakula here." And he goes, "Yeah, that's Scott Bakula. We love Scott Bakula. What did you think of your film?" And I was like, "No, I mean, the film's great or whatever." I was like, "Wow, Scott, huh?" I couldn't stop. And he at some point was like, "Okay, well, it was really, really nice to meet you." And I was like, "Yes, Scott Bakula." And he left, and they made fun of me for a long time after that.
And I'm sure it'll kick up again now.
Oh, absolutely. Just really hope Scott Bakula's watching.
Scott is outside of this door.
I'm going to be served a restraining order. Like, "You're not allowed 500 feet around Scott Bakula, please."
This show, actually, it's not Spotlight On. It's like, what was that old show about your life? Right? Wasn't there some really old game show from, like, I want to say the 60s or something? This Is Your Life.
This Is Your Life.
Yes.
Yeah,
So Scott is through
Scott's
this
outside.
door.
He's coming in. Oh my God.
Yes.
Getting nervous.
Yes, you should be. So we better wrap up then so we can meet Scott. So
Yeah.
Chris, this has been a blast. Where can everyone find you on social media to send you photos of Scott and talk to you about your best movie
You're going to make
lines?
this a thing now, and this is going to be a thing. This is embarrassing. You can find me on Twitter at I am Chris Santos, the letter I, the letter M, Chris Santos, and on Insta at They Call Me Santos.
And you can find Chris in the movie Perfect as well as Someday. I'm Zoe Hewitt. You can find me on Twitter and Insta at Real Zoe Hewitt. Thanks so much for joining us. Bye-bye.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.